Hello, my name is Steven, and I am so glad that you came across this video to help you better develop your personal productivity, discipline, and better understand a very controversial and famous figure, David Goggins. I've had a lifelong interest in David Goggins, read both of his books, Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished, thoroughly, and applied some of his mindset and techniques into my own personal life and work. In this video, I want to reveal and discuss what I believe Goggins got right and where he may be too extreme. First, for a bit of background, and for those who don't know, David Goggins had an impressive resume. He was a former abused and bullied kid who was severely overweight and had a learning disability. David Goggins taught himself to read and write and lost over 100 pounds on pure willpower. This is just the beginning of his impressive career when he went on to become a Navy SEAL, had an impressive military career, and also participated in numerous ultra endurance races, such as running over 100 miles at one time. However, the statistics were all pointing against him. Growing up, Goggins dealt with racism and abuse, and struggle after struggle. It took a miracle for him to turn things around in his life. After studying Goggins and applying some of his principles into my own life, here's my take on what he got right and where he may be too extreme. Let's dive right in. One of the great things about David Goggins is that he really encourages us to strengthen our willpower and to act with discipline. And most of the time, that is accurate. The thing with the human mind is that we are programmed to avoid suffering and pain. But leading a life where we do that also creates numerous problems for us that can cause great pain later. For example, eating whatever you like, fast food, junk food, becoming overweight, becoming unhealthy, treating your loved ones poorly because you're not disciplined enough to treat them well, not creating value at work, in your life, etc. So it's necessary for us to do the right things so we can feel good later and actually help us achieve our goals, our dreams, such as being healthy, staying in shape, working hard, being productive, and being there for your loved ones. This brings me to the point that discipline over motivation is 100% the way to go. Goggins is right that if something is important to you, just because you don't feel like doing it doesn't mean you should listen to those feelings. Many times you want to listen to your rational mind instead to make the right choice, even when you don't feel like it. This is ultimately how you will reach and accomplish your goals. So, Goggins is right. Motivation is weak, discipline is a decision. If you only act when you feel like it, you'll never grow. The second thing that I agree with David Goggins is that callousing your mind works. The more you live in alignment with who you want to be and don't give in to temptations, the more it makes your mind stronger and more calloused. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, while at first difficult, it becomes more of a way of life over time. A few years ago, when I pushed myself to run, that process of not wanting to do something, but still finishing the run, allowed me to get more comfortable with that feeling of facing an uncomfortable action or task that I wanted to get done to get me closer to who I wanted to be. Does this mean that all hard things will get easier if I face them? Absolutely not. It's still an act of willpower to do hard things. But callousing your mind and having a bias to action really creates a mental toughening. It's like building a muscle. Doing hard things makes your brain tougher, and you learn to act despite the discomfort. The third thing that I agree with David Goggins is that victim mindset is the enemy. Yes, you really need to drop this mindset if you want to succeed. A lot of people don't live with the growth mindset and believe that their potential, their talent are fixed and cannot be expanded. This allows them to blame external circumstances for things that they would rather not face. Yes, we're all a product of our environment, genetics, upbringing, opportunities, or lack thereof. However, there's still a lot that we actually can control, and ultimately it's easier to find a reason about why we can't do something than to find reasons why you can and potentially fail. There are numerous reasons for this, such as the fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, or even fear of success. There are a couple of transformational periods in my life where I realized I was hiding behind the victim mindset. When I was growing up, I was encouraged to study hard, and I did well in school as a result and was recognized positively for that. But as I got older and through college, work experience and leadership positions became more important, and the real world is about doing well in all aspects of life rather than just in the structured environment of school, for example. Dropping the victim mindset and other excuses allowed me to be a beginner again in the real world, to not be good at things, to fail, and to start learning. Goggins is the ultimate proof that your past doesn't define you. Yes, your past shapes you, it affects you and shouldn't be ignored, but it doesn't make you who you are. What I will give to Goggins is that he had every excuse to not be who he wanted to be, every reason not to, and society also enabled him at the time. But luckily for him, he had had enough and was able to drop his own victim mindset, no matter how unfair it was or how he didn't deserve any of the issues he was handed. David Goggins made the choice to do the work and turn his life around. He grew up abused, overweight, and broke, but rewrote his story. Finally, Goggins is a big advocate of the accountability mirror. This, to him, is self awareness of what problems he has and isn't willing to face. The mirror, looking back at his reflection, allows him to be accountable for the things going on in his life. For example, cheating on tests, being overweight, lying to his mom, skipping school. Brutal honesty in the mirror builds self awareness and progress. No hiding, no excuses. You don't need to beat yourself up about your flaws, but it's okay to see, for example, if you're fat and you want to change it, or that you lie and you want to start telling the truth, or that you don't treat your loved ones well and you want to start treating them better. Being accountable is very important, and many times you won't be able to hear that from anyone except yourself when you're looking in the mirror. With all of that being said, let's dive into where Goggins' approach can be taken too far. First, suffering on your weaknesses isn't always the path. Goggins says that focusing on your strengths is the weakest thing and to triple down on your weaknesses. While there is great power to working on your weaknesses and making them stronger, especially when you need to get what you want, we all have natural talents and strengths that also make us feel good when we work on them. Even though being overweight was a great weakness of Goggins, and he conquered it by being able to stay in the best physical shape possible, Goggins also had trouble learning quickly and still needed to do what he did in the past, which is writing out a textbook to commit it to memory to help him learn. So while there's a lot of growth in facing weaknesses, I encourage people to listen to their fears and what scares them, but suffering through your weaknesses isn't always the best or most sustainable path for the long term. Long term excellence comes from working on your weaknesses, but playing towards your strengths and enjoying the process the best that you can, not just with brute force. So I say don't confuse grit with growth. Second, mental toughness is not the same as ignoring your emotions. Goggins is a big advocate of pushing pain down, pushing emotion down, but ignoring your emotional health leads to burnout. Goggins came from a unique place in life where he needed to make large, substantial changes. Maybe you need to make drastic changes too, and the only way is to push away any sign of emotion and pain. However, emotions serve to us signals as directions and signs. It's important to listen to your emotions instead of just pushing them away. This doesn't mean that we should always follow our emotions, such as when you feel like quitting, you shouldn't do that, but you should listen to your feelings as a guide. This is why we need both resilience and reflection. Goggins does mention some of this when he talks about stretching out for a couple of hours every night and going over his day. This is when he's listening to his feelings, making adjustments, and not just brute forcing through it all. Third, doing whatever is hard isn't always the smartest way. When you're unsure about your direction, what you want to do, Goggins has said to just put challenges in front of yourself, and then you'll find yourself real quick. That challenge can be simple as doing 100 push ups, for example. That's a good way to get started and tap into yourself. However, just doing hard things isn't always the best way. For example, doing many push ups and pull ups and running many miles, while it's very good for your mental endurance and physical health, how can some of that action provide value to other people over time? How can it help you or yourself and others grow? Doing whatever is hard or most difficult isn't always the path. How much do you need to do of what's difficult to learn the lesson and extract the information required? Just doing hard stuff for the sake of it? That's ego, not growth. Discipline isn't always saying yes to pain. Sometimes it's saying no to unnecessary suffering. So, with all that being said, what's the real takeaway? In my opinion, it's balancing Goggins' mindset with balance. Goggins is a necessary wake up call in a world addicted to comfort and what's easy. But your path may not be exactly his path. Everyone has a unique set of circumstances. Goggins may have pushed him to be in a certain way. However, it doesn't mean you cannot learn from him. When you're starting out, discipline is key. Mindset is key, but combine it with self awareness, intention, and sustainability. Let's try to be balanced by taking a Goggins discipline, mindset, and toughness while combining it with self awareness, intention, and sustainability. The question for y'all isn't just can I suffer more? The real question is can I live fully with purpose, strength, and peace? Goggins' suffering helped him find discipline when his life had none. However, don't confuse looking for pain as the only path. Think of it as a direction. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped clarify Goggins' message a little bit better. If this impacted you in any way and you learned something, please make sure to hit that like button and tell me in the comments what's one Goggins lesson that changed your life and one that you're rethinking. I'm all about personal development and growth, mental models, mindset shifts, and building a life that you don't need to escape from. Subscribe if that resonates with you. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.